Imagine turning a few $100s into millions. Imagine promising investors a 50% return in just 45 days and actually paying them. People quit their jobs to invest with you. Newspapers write about your success. Banks respect you. Thousands trust you with their life savings. And then, almost overnight, everything collapses. This is the story of Charles Ponzi, the man whose name became synonymous with financial fraud. A man who built one of the most famous scams in history and created a blueprint that con artists still use more than a century later. This is the rise and fall of the original Ponzi scheme. Charles Ponzi was born in Italy in 1882. His family once had wealth, but by the time he grew up, much of it was gone. Like millions of immigrants chasing opportunity, Ponzi arrived in the United States in 1903 with little money and enormous ambition. Legend says he arrived with just a few dollars in his pocket. He worked odd jobs, was fired repeatedly, struggled to make ends meet. But Ponzi had one thing many successful entrepreneurs possess. He dreamed big. The difference was that Ponzi wanted wealth quickly, very quickly. Over the years, he bounced between jobs and businesses, even spending time in prison for forgery and fraud-related offenses. Yet each setback only fueled his desire to become rich. And in 1919, he believed he had finally found the opportunity he had been waiting for. The idea seemed brilliant. At the time, international postal reply coupons could be exchanged for postage stamps in different countries. Because exchange rates varied after World War I, Ponzi claimed there was a massive arbitrage opportunity. In simple terms, buy postal coupons cheaply in one country, redeem them in another country for more valuable stamps. Pocket the difference. On paper, it sounded plausible. Ponzi told investors he could generate enormous profits from this system. He promised returns that seemed impossible. 50% profit in 45 days. 100% profit in 90 days. Today, those promises would immediately raise red flags. But in 1920, many people had never encountered such sophisticated financial schemes. And most importantly, Ponzi delivered, at least in the beginning. Early investors received exactly what they had been promised. Word spread rapidly. Friends told friends. Neighbors told neighbors. Soon, people were lining up outside Ponzi's office. There was just one problem. The business wasn't generating enough profit to support the returns. In fact, investigators later discovered that the number of postal coupons required to justify Ponzi's operation would have been practically impossible to obtain. So where was the money coming from? New investors. That's it. Ponzi used money from new investors to pay earlier investors. Those early investors became walking advertisements. They received their profits and encouraged others to join. The more people invested, the more successful Ponzi appeared. And the more successful he appeared, the more people invested. It was a perfect cycle. At the peak of the frenzy, Ponzi was reportedly taking in hundreds of thousands of dollars every single day. Adjusted for inflation, that's millions of dollars daily in today's money. His operation became one of the biggest financial sensations in America. He bought expensive suits, luxury items, a mansion. He transformed himself from a struggling immigrant into a celebrity businessman. For a brief moment, Charles Ponzi looked unstoppable. But every fraud has one fatal weakness. It requires constant growth. The moment new money slows down, the illusion begins to crumble. As Ponzi's fame exploded, journalists started asking questions. One newspaper investigation looked closely at his claims. The numbers didn't add up. If Ponzi's strategy was real, there should have been millions of postal coupons moving around the world, but there weren't. Financial experts became skeptical. Authorities launched investigations, and then the truth emerged. The business wasn't a revolutionary investment strategy. It was little more than a giant money transfer system where new investors funded old investors. When worried investors rushed to withdraw their money, the scheme began collapsing. The flow of new cash slowed, the obligations grew larger, and the math became impossible. Within months, the empire came crashing down. Thousands of investors lost money. Millions of dollars vanished. The financial wizard turned out to be one of history's greatest fraudsters. Ponzi was arrested and charged with multiple crimes. He was convicted and sent to prison. After serving time, he faced additional legal troubles and eventually was deported from the United States. The man who once handled millions ended up nearly penniless. His later years were a stark contrast to his period of fame. No mansion, no luxury, no fortune. Just a fading reputation and the consequences of a scheme that had destroyed countless lives. In 1949, Charles Ponzi died in Brazil. He was 66 years old, and despite becoming one of the most famous names in financial history, he left behind very little wealth. More than a century later, Charles Ponzi's name is still remembered. Not because he built a great company, not because he invented a revolutionary technology, but because he perfected a deception. The Ponzi scheme remains one of the most common financial frauds in the world. From investment clubs to cryptocurrency scams, the formula rarely changes. Promise extraordinary returns. Create the illusion of success. Use new money to pay old investors. And hope nobody asks too many questions. The lesson is timeless. If an investment guarantees huge profits with little or no risk, skepticism isn't pessimism, it's protection. Because while technology changes, human greed, hope, and trust remain exactly the same. And that's why the ghost of Charles Ponzi still haunts the financial world today. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Which financial fraud should we cover next? Thanks for watching.